Currently, in 2022, Bountiful City is considering adopting its portion of the South Davis Active Transportation Plan that was prepared in 2019 by Alta Planning and Design. That doesn't obligate them to build any of it, but it allows them to reference it as they do consider adding some more bicycle lanes to their streets to make their streets safer and more inviting for its citizens to exercise, recreate, and actively travel on. It also helps them qualify to apply for state and federal funds to fund such projects. There are many benefits to residents when cities make and keep their streets safe for human activity. The most important benefit is that it improves the health and quality of life of residents. Of course, sea creatures are born to swim and birds are born to fly in the air, while we humans and other land animals are born to walk and run on land. Walking, running, and biking on our local streets are our most basic, convenient, and common ways of staying physically active, and they are also great natural ways of getting around our local neighborhoods. When people can conveniently step out of their doors and have local streets that are safe and inviting to walk and bike on in their neighborhoods, their levels of physical activity, health, and quality of life increase. But since in recent decades our streets have been primarily designed with only cars in mind, it can seem like our streets are only for them. However, we know streets and roads have been around a lot longer than cars, and that legally all citizens have a right to use them and have the right to choose different transportation modes while using them. When bicycles became popular in the U.S. in the 1890s, courts confirmed residents had the legal right to use them on our public streets. When automobiles were invented shortly after that, courts again confirmed that residents had the legal right to use them on our public streets as well. But they have never had the exclusive right to the use of our streets. People still have the right to also choose to walk, bike, or use other modes of transportation as well. Now, after many years of optimizing our streets primarily just for automobiles, there is a complete streets movement to also make our streets safe for other legal road users as well, including pedestrians, cyclists, public transit users, and micromobility users, while continuing to keep our streets well designed for cars also. Bike lanes are an important component of complete streets, as they accommodate a variety of road users that are faster than pedestrians walking on sidewalks, but not as quick, powerful, and massive as motor vehicles. That includes human-powered devices like bicycles and scooters, as well as a variety of newer micromobility options with small electric motors like e-bikes, scooters, and senior mobility devices. Bountiful already has done a great job of having safe sidewalks for its citizens, but Bountiful doesn't have many bike lanes yet. But their bike lanes on Davis Boulevard and Bountiful Boulevard are well used and appreciated by residents who live near them. If Bountiful added more bike lanes on more streets, it could develop a useful bicycle network, and more of its residents could benefit from having and using them in their neighborhoods as well. It is recommended that adults get 150 minutes of moderate-intensity physical activity per week, and that growing children and adolescents should get 60 minutes per day of physical activity. But now that many adults have desk jobs and travel everywhere by car, many of us don't get in our recommended amount of physical activity. That has led us to having increased levels of obesity, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and other lifestyle-related chronic diseases. That leads to a decreased quality of life for those with those health challenges and their family members. Physical activity also helps prevent depression and anxiety, so our decreased activity levels have also contributed to increasing rates of depression and mental health issues. As we have more health problems from our decreased physical activity levels, our health care and health insurance costs also go up. But when we share and keep our streets safe for humans and make it easier for people to stay physically active in their neighborhoods, it helps keep our health insurance costs down, since the active people in our insurance pools have lower average health care costs. Countries and cities with higher levels of active transportation have higher levels of physical activity and lower rates of obesity and lifestyle-related chronic diseases. Active transportation includes walking, biking, and using public transportation as well, since using it usually requires you to walk or bike to get from your public transit stop to your destination. In the U.S., most of us use our cars for all our trips, whether it's for a 2-block drive to our local church or a 20-mile commute. But people in localities that use walking and biking for some of their trips tend to use a variety of transportation options depending on the circumstances. For example, here's a graph of how trips are usually made in the Netherlands by trip length. As you can see, for trips under a half a mile, walking is the most common transportation mode, but for trips between a half a mile to 3 miles, cycling is the most common transportation mode. Then for trips over 3 miles, cars are the most common transportation mode. In Davis County, 54% of all trips are 3 miles or less. That's an easy distance to cover on a bicycle. And some of our trips are even under a half a mile. For example, visiting a neighbor friend or going to a local church. That's an easy distance to walk. Many Americans report that they would like to bicycle more, but don't feel it's safe on their streets. In a phone survey of residents in 50 metropolitan areas in the United States, including Salt Lake City, 12% of people indicated they are comfortable biking on roads with things like painted shoulders and painted bike lanes. But 51% of Americans indicated that although they are interested in biking, they often don't feel safe until there was safer infrastructure like protected or separated bike lanes and paths. 37% of Americans said they were not interested in biking, but in total this survey found that 63% of Americans in metropolitan areas indicated they would like to bike on U.S. streets if they felt safe. That indicates that there is a huge opportunity in the U.S. to increase bicycling rates if safe infrastructure is built. Another benefit of active transportation, public transportation, microtransportation, and carpooling is that they all reduce traffic congestion. That's because they all use much less road space per person than single-occupancy vehicles. For example, when moving, a bus takes up about the same road space as 2 cars, but it can carry about the same number of people as around 50 single-occupancy vehicles. Bicycles and microtransit options also use much less road space per person. About a year after London built some protected bike lanes around 2016, a traffic count found that the bike lanes were moving about 5 times more people per square meter than the main car lanes were. Here is a chart from the National Association of City Transportation Officials, or NACTO, showing how many people can be moved in the same 1 car lane space by different transportation modes. So that is why cities trying to solve or prevent traffic congestion try to encourage and make it easier and more inviting for people to use public and active transportation and carpooling. And on the flip side, that's why when growing metropolitan areas primarily rely on single-occupancy vehicle travel, they eventually experience heavy traffic congestion. And interestingly, younger millennials are driving less and using more public and active transportation trips than the older generation. Another nice thing about having an active transportation network is that it gives us more viable transportation options and choices for if our circumstances, health, or preferences change. Having multiple transportation options has been nice for me through the years. I moved to Bountiful at the age of 13 and initially walked to my schools. When I turned 16 and got my driver's license, I mostly drove around, but when I went to the University of Utah and later worked in downtown Salt Lake City as a young father, I often took the bus, since Bountiful has a good bus service to both of those places, and that helped us save money on transportation and parking fees, and it helped allow my wife to be a stay-at-home mother with our young children while we lived on a single income. When I got moved to a desk job at a different location, I drove everywhere and was sedentary for about 18 years. So I became obese, and in my early 50s I had some heart-chest pains and was afraid I was going to have a heart attack soon if I didn't get active. So I started bicycling for exercise on Davis Boulevard, and then decided to do a half-bike, half-bus commute to incorporate more physical activity into my daily life. My heart-chest pains went away, and I think I avoided having a heart attack. Also, if gasoline and energy prices go up in the future, as we use up more of our finite supply of fossil fuels, being able to use active transportation may be a nice option to have. When gas prices went up between 2008 and 2014, Americans did find ways to drive less. We all love the convenience and comfort of our automobiles, but when we drive in them by ourselves, not only are they not very road space efficient, but they are also not very energy efficient either. When we drive our single-occupancy motor vehicles, about 2% of the energy is used to move the person inside the car, while 98% of the energy used is to move the vehicle. Active transportation, microtransportation, public transportation, and carpooling all use much less energy per person than single-occupancy vehicles. Of course, that also means that using these alternate modes of transportation result in less pollutants and emissions, helping improve our air quality and environment. Active transportation, public transportation, and microtransportation are also nice options to have for people and families who want to find ways to reduce their expenditures to live within their budgets instead of taking a second job or while raising their families. Adding an active transportation network to existing streets is also fairly economical for cities. For example, the 2015 20-year Salt Lake City Active Transportation Plan estimated the cost for implementing its recommendations was about the same as the cost of widening a freeway for 1.3 miles. And a well-designed and implemented active transportation network can be done in a way that is both safe and inviting for physically active residents, while also not having much effect on motor vehicle traffic. So in short, making active transportation and recreation, such as bicycling, walking, and getting to and using public transit more safe and inviting in a community, not only improves the health and lives of the people who take advantage of them, but it also benefits people who choose to not utilize them by helping reduce or prevent traffic congestion, by helping keep our health insurance rates down, by improving our air quality and giving us viable activity and transportation choices in the future if our health, circumstances, or preferences change. So it's a win-win proposition for everyone. So a vote for adopting and supporting Bountiful's active transportation plan is a vote to improve the quality of life of all Bountiful residents.